Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cartoon Clearance with Meg and Dan. I'm Meg,
And I'm Dan.
and today we are going to ramble about Earth's mightiest hero. He is seafoam green, he has a mullet, he wears pretty much no clothes, and he takes all of the credit from kids who do 90% of the job, and sometimes he even contributes some of the problem to begin with, but we can get to that later. We are, of course, talking about Captain Planet.
I think it's safe to say that Captain Planet is truly a role model for the 90s because of his green mullet, because he wears almost no clothes, because he's highly inept.
Yeah, my heart couldn't stop pounding when we were watching it. So we watched a bunch of different episodes, but we're going to be talking about two in particular that are breathtakingly ham-fisted. And those episodes are called Mind Pollution and Population Combustion. Daniel, do you want to give a little bit of the background and the plot summary of, I guess, just what Captain Planet is in general?
Of course. So Captain Planet, if most people don't know, was created by Ted Turner of Turner, I guess, Entertainment fame. It originally debuted September 10th of 1990 on TBS. What a coincidence. Ran from 1990 to 1996. I believe that was the original run of the show. I think they had a revival a couple years after that. Created by Ted Turner, of course, Phil Harnage, Barbara Pyle, and Robert Larkin III. So, the plot of Captain Planet is that, if you haven't figured it out from watching the first 30 seconds of the show, Gaia, the spirit of the Earth, has finally had enough with its destruction. I do find it kind of funny that she picks now as the time, but that's when the show takes place. It's arbitrary, but whatever. So, she bestows upon 5 children from across the world rings of elemental power. Fire, earth, air, water, and of course that fifth element, heart. Together, with their powers combined, they can summon Captain Planet with these rings, who, as everyone knows, is better than everyone, some of the times. The Planeteers, as the kids are called, travel the Earth in their, I guess, non-pollution consuming or carbon footprint emitting hydrofoil, I don't know what you'd call it.
Environmentally friendly AirPod.
Yeah, the gyros, the geobuster, something like that. They travel the world in search of corruption and pollution, try to make the world a better place as Gaia deems suitable. And at the end of every episode, they kind of cover their asses and they teach you some things that aren't completely ham-fisted and more educational. So as Meg said, we watched the episodes Mind Pollution, aka Don't Do Drugs or You'll Turn into a Zombie and Die, or Population Combustion, Rats Have a Lot of Babies. But before we get into those episodes, since we did watch a bunch of episodes, I'd like to ask Meg, what did you think of Captain Planet and the Planeteers?
Well, I think it should be noted that this was my first experience watching Captain Planet ever in my entire life. Somehow I managed to make it this far into my life without ever seeing, as much as 5 seconds of Captain Planet.
You didn't even know what he looked like. I was like, let me just show you a picture.
I did not know. I didn't even know what he looked like. And as Daniel said, it made me laugh.
Oh, it's amazing.
Captain Planet, when the kids kind of summon him out of the ring, all I could think of was like a magical girl transformation sequence, because you get like this pan down his body as he's like stretched out like a torpedo flying through the air, as his body is like shimmering rainbow colors, sparkling. Yeah. It just every single time I see it, it just cracks me up.
And he always has, it's a really low volume at first, but he's like, with your powers combined, I am Captain Planet! And like, he really has a crescendo to his voice. So it's like, he's really just like, yeah.
And he does, like, he doesn't really have a shirt. He's got like this tiny little scrap of cloth.
It's like a dickie, I think. It's like a dickie you'd put under like a regular shirt.
and like these tiny little like panties.
Yeah, that's common among a lot of superheroes.
Well, yeah, but
the main thing is that most of them are clothed.
Most of the
women,
male superheroes are wearing like the panties over like a bodysuit. This guy is just wearing the panties, and I gotta say, it's nice to see a male character who's almost naked for once instead of just busty female characters.
He's really a trailblazer as far as what males are supposed to wear.
Yeah, he even cross-dressed in one episode.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, in the later seasons, because for most of the main series, he's sort of like the Megazord equivalent to Power Rangers, where the Power Rangers try to solve everything, and they don't, and they're like, let's form a Megazord, and then the Megazord solves everything. And I don't really like this era of cartoons because of that sort of style, or just because it's kind of like every episode seems like a throwaway and meaningless, to me at least.
Mhm.
But in the later episodes, Captain Planet's sort of more present among the kids and their plans. Like, they don't just summon him to solve the problems. Like, in one episode we watched, they were making a Captain Planet movie, and he was starring as Captain Planet, so he's walking around the set, and then the guy's just like, "That's your costume?" And he's like, "I like this." Or when he goes undercover as Chiquita Banana, Carmen Miranda, and he's like, "Oh, hello there." Yeah.
His awkward.
Does he have
falsetto.
it? Does he ever give a name? No, he
No,
doesn't.
he
But he
didn't.
just says like, "I would really appreciate it if you didn't use up all the water to make your golf course."
If you made this into a nature preserve instead.
And then she or he, I mean, Captain Planet is never really specified as a gender, so maybe that's even more amazing.
Maybe.
Pushes Hoggish Greeley to the ground. It's like, "Sorry, I'm so forceful." And then Hoggish Greeley's like, "What?" I'm sorry, Hoggish Greeley is one of the villains for anyone out there.
He's basically a big bipedal pig, as the name would suggest.
Yeah, and I will say, I could have sworn there was an episode where he dies. I thought, and I tried looking up, I couldn't find
Captain
anything. I thought
Planet,
it was
that is.
Yeah, Captain Planet. I thought I was going crazy because I remember years ago when I first really sat down and watched Earth Day's Captain Planet special, and the first episode we'll talk about, I saw during this. I remember specifically seeing this bumper in between the show and the commercials of like an American flag fluttering in like a rubble DC metro area,
Uh-huh.
and then like being like and it's saying Captain Planet dies. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And I never saw it. I thought it existed. I wanted to watch that, but apparently that doesn't exist. Maybe I'm mixing up Captain Planet and Superman dies, but I don't know. I could have sworn. If
maybe.
anyone else out there can verify what I said, I would appreciate it. But yeah.
One other thing that I thought about the show in general was that like it was entertaining, but not because it was good. It was one of those where it's just, you're having so much fun watching it because it's like you can't believe that they actually did that.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I do think that it's trying to send out an important message, environmentalism, all for that.
Yeah.
And I liked their effort to have some diversity in the cast. Like, you had kids from, all over the world. You had a guy from Africa. You had a guy from South America. You had a girl from...
Asia. There's Asia and Eastern Europe, and before then, USSR, I think, or Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Because the Eastern Bloc hadn't fallen yet.
Right. But I do have to say, the accents sounded pretty awkward to me.
Yeah, because they were, for the most part, American voice actors doing it.
Although, I gotta say, like, the South American kid, Mati, I realized at one point when his accent was slipping that he was voiced by Scott Menville. And Scott Menville was the voice actor of Robin from the Teen Titans animated series. And as a kid, I was so in love with Robin, and I couldn't hate Mati after that, and I couldn't unhear it either. I was just like, oh, it's like Robin.
And speaking of Mati, I have to make an official apology. All throughout my life, I've been saying Heart is the worst of the rings. It's the dumbest. It's not even a real element. I'm here to rescind that, because after watching many episodes, water is clearly the worst ring. Because, alright, let me set it up for you. Fire. You can shoot fire from your ring. Earth. You can make earthquakes. You can't shoot rocks out, but you can control the earth. You're always on Earth, so you always got some stuff, unless you're in the air, of course. Wind. You can shoot wind out of your ring. Heart is like, I can put animals at ease, which I always thought was lame compared to the other ones, but I can see its benefit. You can read people's minds. I think like it had telepathy.
Yeah, telepathy.
But it had its uses. I always thought Heart was like the miscellaneous one, though, because it was like the sonic screwdriver. Be like, what can't the sonic screwdriver do?
Right.
It can't do whatever the writers haven't written yet. But Heart actually is ranked. It's still low to me, but it has its uses. But water is definitely the worst. I don't think I hate Guy for it, the woman who wields the water power, but it can only work when water is present. But it's always restricted to like, I made a pipe break and water fell out, rather than like, I can cause a tsunami, like in the intro. Let us get to the first of the main episodes, Mind Pollution, which is, as I said earlier, don't do drugs or you turn into a zombie.
Yeah.
And other things. This episode was it focused on Linka, the girl from Eastern Europe, and her cousin Boris, I believe his name
I think
is.
so.
And the episode starts off with this kid just running around the DC area, and they have this great freeze frame shot where he's in front of the Capitol, like the White House, and just sort of like looks around, and then he keeps running while this voiceover is coming in. He's like, "You don't got any friends. This is a new place. You're really depressed.
Being the new kid sucks."
Yeah, and then he sees this guy in an alley, and he's like, "I got something that can make you feel great. It's called Bliss." Bliss, and it's a pill, a radioactive pill. It appears, and without even batting an eye at this guy's rat-like appearance, his name is Verminous Scum. He has a giant rat nose, wears purple and red hooded robes. Without even saying, "Who are you? What is that?" Normal questions. Any stranger, or, "Oh, I gotta get out of this alley." He whips money out. And the guy's like, "Whoa, not so fast." Like, the drug dealer had to be like, "Slow down for a minute." So Boris gets hooked on drugs immediately. And Linka goes to DC, right?
Yeah, she goes to visit her cousin Boris.
Boris. They were like riding on bikes around DC. She's like, "Boris, what the hell's wrong with you?" He's like, "I don't need friends to be happy. I've got drugs." And she's like, "You should never do drugs." And he's like, "You don't know what you're talking about." And then he like runs into the middle of an open highway.
He like just bikes straight across the busy highway.
Yeah. Also, before I forget, I think Boris is voiced by the voice actor who does Johnny Bravo, among other very beloved actors. I think his name's Jeff Bennett. Anyway, so he runs across a highway, and Linka's like, "I guess I'll just go back home." And then Boris is like, "I'm sorry. I quit. I got rid of that stuff. You were right. Have a burrito."
Yeah, the bad guy was like blackmailing him into getting her.
Yeah,
hooked.
he's like, you gotta get this Planeteers ring. I didn't know that was your cousin.
Yeah.
So get her ring, because he's an enemy of the Planeteers. And he's like, "Here's a burrito." And they both eat the burrito, and she's like, "Whoa, what is in this burrito?" He's like, "Isn't it great?" So she's immediately addicted to drugs.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of misrepresentation on how drugs work when you have one and you're immediately addicted. That's it.
Yeah, and she ate a burrito. He didn't say, I don't think he made specifically mention that, drugs were in this. He probably gave more afterwards. But if I had drugs in my burrito, I'd be like, "This is a really good burrito. I gotta get more burritos." And then I'd feel really sick afterwards because I ate like 15 burritos. Yeah. What happens afterwards? I think.
Yeah, the Planeteers finally realize that the Capitol is in like this state of crisis,
shambles.
Zombie apocalypse, because now literally everyone in the city is hooked on drugs and is in zombie state, literally shambling around, obeying whatever the guy tells them to do. And they've got Linka, and they're holed up in some building or other.
I think it's the Jefferson building.
And, she's sitting there like a zombie. And I have to say, I was shocked at what transpired in the scenes following this, because Boris, in an attempt to get to Linka...
Because the Planeteers get Linka away and try to like run away from all the zombies. And they barricade themselves in...
Boris jumps headfirst through the window, falls on the ground, and immediately starts bleeding profusely out the wrists. And I saw that and I was like, holy shit. Like, I don't think...
It's not even like, some blood trickled out. It was like immediately covered in puddles. Just like a pool of his own blood on the ground. He slit his elbows pretty much open.
I was shocked. I literally never expected to see this in a children's show from the 90s. I don't think I ever saw any semblance of blood in any animated show until I started watching anime.
And if anything, it was like a bruise. It was like a bruise or like a little cut that there'd be a scene of like a mom like cleaning it or whatever. But this was like headfirst dive, 3 seconds pass, blood.
And then, of course, so the Planeteers decide to do the really smart thing when they have two drug addicts who they have already proven they can't keep tabs on.
They take them to a roof.
Not even to the roof, to some ledges outside of the windows on a high place.
Yeah, they're like, this is our best bet of getting out of here. And then they get up there, and then I think Wheeler's like, well, where now?
Maybe we didn't think this through.
So then the drug dealer comes, and he tries to airlift in more drugs. He's a very good drug dealer. He knows how to... He doesn't even need money. He just wanted to get everyone hooked.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I think they were stealing stuff, and that's why. But in this instance, he's like, "I got a whole bag of pills over here." And then Boris is like, "Give me them, please." He's like, "Okay." He throws them. And then Linka and him fight over it.
This is after Boris just like shoved a huge handful of the pills down his throat. And I saw that and I was like, oh my god, you're gonna die.
How
And
is he
then-
not dead
then
yet?
The second kicker happened. Boris just keeled right over on the floor. The Asian girl got down, felt his pulse for 3 seconds, and was like, "That's it. He's dead."
He's
and
dead.
I was like, "Really?"
What?
So they have
Also,
blood.
Linka's like, "What's wrong with Boris?" And then Guy pushes her out of the way. Keep in mind, they're still on the roof, and it's like dead. And he's like, "No, not Boris!" And then they're like, "Yeah, man, that's what happens." So then she's like, "I'll never let drugs take over my mind again." She musters up enough strength so they can all get Captain Planet. The Captain Planet breathes the guy over into a river.
That's more than enough
Potomac.
punishment. You know, he doesn't need to go to jail.
Yeah, now
or
he.
anything.
What if he still had the drugs? They could have gotten in the water supply anyway. So then they set up like an emergency triage tent facility around the entire capital, where they're like, withdrawals are pretty bad, but Linka's kind of all right. And this is another thing. Like they say, like, oh, you can get addicted to drugs immediately. You could also get over it really quick. They don't go into the specifics of once you've become addicted to drugs, it's a thing you have to manage for the rest of your life. The temptations and the withdrawals and everything. But in general, this episode is don't take drugs. It went a little bit too far, but I think my favorite part was this guy. He ate some cheese that had drugs in it, and then he's like, whoa, I don't feel good. The drug dealer. And he's like, no, now I'm addicted too. He was like he didn't want to get addicted to drugs. And then he even like, Captain Planet's like, you're going to pay. And the drug dealer's like, you're not going to make me addicted to drugs, right? And he's like, no. Like this drug dealer was straight edge to the point where he was pushing drugs, but did not want to be associated with them.
Well, he's got to be clear-headed enough
Very
to enjoy all
strange.
his money as he stubbornly slinks around in his dirty old trench coat.
The next episode, population combustion. Meg, take the reins.
So population combustion starts out in like some really crowded place. And, you know, the Planeteers are talking about how crowded it was, and I think Guy was like, yeah, in some countries there are places that already put limits on how many kids you can have. And Wheeler, the North American guy, is like, huh, no way anyone is ever going to tell me how many kids I can have. If I want a big family, then I'm going to have a big family.
Keep in mind, Wheeler is probably 15, 16.
Figures.
And he also has a thing for Linka, I think, is what I've seen across several episodes.
I think that's pretty safe.
There's never
to
an established,
Then you get a hard cut to Wheeler windsurfing. Okay. And like the storm comes in and he gets knocked out for a second and then he wakes up and he's being taken prisoner by like these tiny little anthropomorphic rat people. And they're really not very curious creatures because apparently when they make this discovery of a human being who's like 10 times their size, they've never seen before, their first instinct is to just send it to the food mills. No investigation, no like...
They were going to grind Wheeler up into sardine chunks.
Basically. And this was because they had a food shortage because they had too many babies.
They had too many babies. And there's a great scene of the main... Well, I won't say the main rat, but the rat that Wheeler befriends. His name is Piebald? Piebald. I keep wanting to say Tidebowl. Piebald. And he's voiced by Charlie Adler, who was Buster Bunny and a bunch of other cartoon characters also. He's like, I used to be a very good scientist, and I tried to establish that we shouldn't have so many babies. And then he's in front of, I'd say, like, the Rat Congress. And then the government's like, take him away. They
make him a slave.
They make him a slave and chain him to the ground so he can just watch sardines be chunked.
Yep.
I don't know why. So anyway, Wheeler tries to help Piebald out. I can't remember his name.
Piebald.
Tries to help him out. It's like King Kong and Gulliver's Travels wrapped in one. And I think in the end, the rat overlord, I don't know if they have a name for him, pretty much nukes his own people.
Yep.
And like Wheeler's like, we can save you, and Piebald every time he's like, I just long to see my wife and child again.
Yep.
In the future that they won't have. So Piebald reunites with his wife and child, and they're standing in like their apartment or whatever, and Wheeler is looking in, and he's like, come out, I can bring you to safety. He's like, no, our time as a species has run its course.
Don't let this happen to you.
We will die together. And I thought, wow, way to speak on behalf of like your 5-year-old kid who probably is like, Dad,
the 5-year-old kid that you've never actually met.
Yeah, and the wife.
And the wife.
Or anyone else on the island who are also rats who could definitely easily live in this society, but whatever. It turns out to be a dream, so no harm, no foul.
But now Wheeler is very on board with a population control thing.
Yeah, and he looks out to the ocean, and there's a nice reflection of Pybul. He's like, "Don't make the same mistakes as I did."
Oh my god, that was so funny.
And he like rippled away
Yep.
into the abyss,
ocean.
into the sunset, and then they had some sort of bumper for not having. But the funny thing is, they never bring up like wear a condom, practice safe sex, because that's too crazy. But they're okay with saying that like there's a population problem. Like they just put it out there, but they're not going to solve it. Like of course they can't solve it, but they never put like the options out there. But that's I think one of the main things, and I guess this is our conclusion portion. Did Captain Planet succeed in what it was trying to be? Because as entertainment, I get entertainment from it, but from its ridiculousness, you know? As far as its PSAs go, I think it goes a little overboard at times. I do applaud it for talking about the environment.
Yeah.
During a time where a lot was dialed back the other way. The 1980s were not a very good time as far as environmental legislation went, as far, I believe. So they were kind of, you know, bringing up points again, but I don't know. A lot of the episodes we watched were just bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of whether or not it did its job on the education factor, I don't know if I can really say because I'm an adult and I already know, like, don't go dumping toxic waste into rivers. Don't throw your soda cans on the ground. Don't be an asshole, basically.
Yeah. Do you think this is an issue of, maybe not to toot our own horns, but I think we were raised fairly well. Even as a kid when I watched Captain Planet, I thought, well, this is lame. I know you're supposed to recycle. But that's coming from our backgrounds.
Right.
And there are people who don't have as good of backgrounds as maybe either of us had. Not to say I was like rich or anything. I wasn't by any means. But, you know, in maybe more rundown or lesser thought about areas of America where people have lots of crime or pollution problems, you see a kid and a kid watches it and they don't realize that there could be a change.
Yeah.
So maybe the show is meant for them more than a kid of my caliber.
Of your caliber, eh?
Now I am tuning
So
my own horn.
snooty. No, I think that there are definitely kids that could get enjoyment out of it as well as some informational benefit, you know?
Yeah.
And as someone who never watched this as a kid, I can't really say from that perspective. I don't know if I would be bored. I feel like there are some episodes that would entertain me enough to watch it.
Yeah. I don't drink, but this would probably be a great show to watch while drunk, which would be going probably against Captain Planet's mission statement.
Is Captain Planet,
Well, if he doesn't want you to do drugs, I assume he probably doesn't want you to binge drink while watching his own show.
Okay. Well,
Anytime pollution or a buzzword is brought up, you take a drink.
you would die.
You would die. You'd be like Boris. And
You
you'd be like,
would.
that's why you have to restrict it to just one episode per binge drink.
Oh yeah, definitely. As an adult, I would still watch it for laughs.
It's a funny show.
Yeah.
If you really want a cheesy show, I think it succeeded in talking about the environment. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I would like to see maybe trends of how active communities were from 1990 to 1996.
Right.
Saying more victory gardens or recycling plants being made because of Captain Planet. I don't know. If someone
Well,
out
they
there
have
has a
like
chart.
the Captain Planet Foundation or whatever.
That's true, yeah. But yeah, Captain Planet is a funny show. If you can find the bonkers episodes, and most of them are bonkers, it's great. Some of them are just like run of the mill.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one we watched, there was one we watched about like a kid being cloned. That one was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
But it was kind of just not that great.
Yeah, I can see how it could get repetitive.
Yeah, and that's sort of, I don't really like cartoons of the era because every episode to me seemed to be the same. And Captain Planet, every episode was the same. The kids go somewhere, they try to do a thing happens, they try to do another thing, then they call Captain Planet and he solves the thing.
But you know what? At least from the few episodes that we watched, it's not as bad as Code Lyoko. And that is
No.
a pretty big plus.
And hey, we are gonna watch that at some point too. So all those Code Lyoko fans out there, well, you know what? I'll save it for the Code Lyoko review, which I actually kind of want to be our next review now.
Oh no!
So I might bump down. I think we were gonna watch a
Dino
Korean
King?
dinosaur movie that I watched. But no, you know what? No, we'll stay with Dino King. Code Lyoko is a whole series overview.
Oh yes.
But in general, that's our review of Captain Planet. We would really like it if you sent a comment our way of shows to watch, things we missed. A subscription would be most appreciated, or even a like. It would help us out a lot.
You have the power.
Yeah, you have the power to bring us more viewers. That about does it for the cartoon clearance. We are Discount Ramblepants.
And remember, we cannot go on having babies like there's no tomorrow.
Have a pleasant tomorrow.
Have a pleasant tomorrow. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.